Hey Jesse, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh,
Hey,
that's good.
before we begin,
Mm,
uh, can I tell you a story that not only tugs on your heartstrings but also itches your funny bone?
go ahead, hit me with it.
Oh, I thought you had already watched the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Uh, I kind of knew that's where you were going with that. But I was trying to go along.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So we did it. We watched another movie. That's the 12th one,
A
The
dozen.
Peanut Butter Falcon, 2019. Um, I don't know why I pick such bad movies. But April Fools, I don't. I pick great movies. That was a wonderful watch. How do you feel about it?
I also very much enjoyed it. If I could sum it up in one phrase, it would be heartwarming.
Yes, tugs on your heartstrings
It sure does.
for sure.
Hmm.
Just a nice story all around.
It was.
Um, One negative about it though, unlike the rest of our the movies we watch, I don't know if we're gonna find a lot of stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah, we might have to search a little, but we'll get there.
Always the optimist.
That's right.
Okay, well, what were your overall impressions? Just a kind of a,
A
you know,
general feeling of the film.
yeah, general feeling of the film.
Well, I thought it was very good. It was nice to look at. It was visually very nice. It was funny. And there were some very good performances, I thought. Although not all the performances were perfect, but generally the performances were very nice. And it was a good length. I like that about this movie. It was an hour and a half. That was very nice. Yeah, it's just good. It was a good movie. What?
The 90 minutes played a huge part in picking this movie
Mm-hmm.
because we kind of been going for some longer ones, not on
Mm-hmm.
purpose, but just how it worked out. So, a nice sit down. Watched it with dinner.
Yep.
Um, yeah, visually appealing. Um, I think there's going to be some high scores for me, anyways, on the expectation and acting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Both kind of exceeded my expectations, if you will.
Right.
The only trivia that I really have
Yeah.
is there's one connection from an earlier movie that we watched on the podcast, and that came from Zach's roommate, who was
Bruce
played
Dern.
by Bruce Dern,
Uh huh.
Laura's father. He
Yes.
was the caretaker in The Haunting.
Oh, okay. I see that. I didn't make that connection when I watched it, but now the pieces are coming together. The puzzle pieces have connected.
And just so you're aware,
Mm-hmm.
we are Your Mother Ate My Dog, the podcast. I'm Josh. You're Jesse.
I am.
And this week we watched The Peanut Butter Falcon, Shia Labeouf. That's a name I can say. He starred in this one. My expectations, I had decent expectations for this movie going
Yeah.
in. I had heard good things.
That kind of leads me into a quick question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm
Nope.
curious how you heard about this film.
I like Shia as an actor.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if he's a good person, but he always seems to.
Well, he's been hit and miss, but I think he's sort of on the up and up lately. I think he's sort of turned his life around a little.
I think he might be an underrated actor. He does
Hmm.
some good things, but I haven't watched much of his stuff. But he has been coming out with more and more things, such as
Yeah.
Honey Boy, which is a movie I want to watch about.
Yeah.
Like it's about his life, I guess.
Okay.
And then Peanut Butter Falcon. I don't know. I saw that it came out a few years ago, and it's always a movie that I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
I knew it starred Zach Gotteswagen,
Uh-huh.
a young man. He plays a 22-year-old in this movie, but he's in his mid 30s
Okay.
with Down syndrome, and I thought that it could be a fun thing to watch, and I'm happy that we got to watch it together.
Yes, it was quite nice. I got to say, I had heard about this film too before you had mentioned that you wanted to watch it, and it was from watching Shia LaBeouf's
Hot Ones.
episode, which is actually quite nice. It's a very nice one to watch if you haven't seen it. I don't know, he's just very genuine in it, and that's what makes it's become one of my favorite episodes of that show. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend it because they talk briefly about this movie because it came out after this movie came out, that episode, and it got me
Right.
kind of interested.
Yeah, very genuine man, that Shia.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. One thing I liked about this movie, just out of left field, was that Thomas Hayden Church was in it, and that reminded me of a film that was very dear to me growing up.
Spider-Man.
Not Spider Man. This was George of the Jungle. Have you seen it?
Of course, I've seen George of the Jungle.
I love that movie.
Had it on VHS.
Me too. Again, it's one of those. It's one of the few movies that I owned, and so it would get played fairly often. And now I have a fondness for it, an everlasting fondness. So it was nice seeing him.
I've only ever seen him play the villain. So refreshing to see him
Yes,
play a good guy.
that is true. I have only seen him as a villain as well.
He has a long list of movies that he does. I have only seen a handful of them. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe he plays good guys too sometimes, but
Possible.
he's made of sand in one of
Yeah.
them. Duncan and Rat Boy, they weren't nearly as bad or scary enough. Like they
Right.
just had weapons. That's kind of the only reason that we were supposed to be scared of them,
Mm-hmm.
and a boat. But yeah, and I feel bad because every movie we watch, we always talk about like the lead female never
Yeah.
like doing it for us. So
I
I mean, I
guess
thought
so. But like in char.
I was just gonna say that I thought Dakota Johnson, she was her character was kind of unlikable, but I
Mm-hmm.
thought she did a perfectly fine job in it.
Yeah. Well, I felt like she was given too much loyalty to the place that she was working. Like she was too much like, okay, we need to go back and oh Zach, don't do that. Like it's you're gonna get hurt or whatever. Like I feel like she should have been more of like a genuine person that was finding herself separated from her job. Like she didn't seem like the type of person like once we got to really know her that would be doing the things that she was doing. Like she was holding on to those things that her boss wanted her to do a little too long, I felt. If that makes any sense.
It does. There was a note I have about the ending that
Hmm.
because of that, I thought it was a little strange that she was so quick to leave
Yeah.
Florida
I have something I want to say about the ending, but I'll save that for
at
the
the end.
end. Yeah. One thing, another sort of out of left field, another actor that was in this film. He was in this even less. Was Mick Foley. Now, did you watch wrestling growing up?
Huge Mick Foley guy.
Were you, or are you just saying that?
No, I mean, is he an actor though? I
Well,
would
he's
think of
not.
him
He's
more
not
as a
an actor.
wrestler.
He's a wrestler, I know, but I mean, he was in this film, so that makes him an actor.
Do you know what his name was in the film?
Uh, an announcer guy.
No, he was Jacob
Of Jacob, of course.
from Jacob's Inferno.
And I mean, me personally, I didn't watch a ton of wrestling growing up. I did have my favorites. So like I watched a little like in the early 2000s, like Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, like that era. And I don't know if Mick Foley was around then. He probably was. But I did, and when I saw him, I instantly recognized him. But I thought that was kind of an interesting touch to put him in, I guess.
Well, there was a second wrestler in the movie. You may not have known because perhaps you weren't, diehard wrestling fan, but a diehard wrestling fan would have noticed that Sam,
Hmm.
is played by Jake Roberts, Jake the Snake
Oh,
Roberts.
Jake the Snake. Yeah, okay. I've heard that name, but I wouldn't have recognized him, no.
Yeah, he was more of like a '90s guy, so maybe a little before
Okay.
both of our
Okay,
times.
yeah.
Yeah, he was like a bad guy for the most part when he wrestled.
Right. And not that we weren't alive in the 90s. Me being born in 92 and you in 91, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just putting that out there. We're not like born in the 2000s or anything like that.
Gross.
Yeah, that would just be terrible. I'm glad that's not me.
But yeah, he played the
Just kidding.
villain. Well, he played kind of the bad guy in the movie too.
Can I,
Leads to the ending, which we'll talk about more.
yeah. Can I talk a bit about that whole wrestling scene? You know, like
No,
where Zach is actually, did you just say no?
no.
Okay, no, forget it then. No, when Zach is like steps into the ring finally, it reminded me of another film, especially when he lifts up who I now know to be Jake the Snake and, you know, throws him out of the ring. So,
Hmm.
somewhat magically, you could say.
Yes.
It reminded me of Nacho Libre, where at somewhat near the end of the film, Nacho, he, you know, like dives out of the ring to tackle Ramses, you know, and he likes. Have you seen it? Well, I might be explaining something you've never seen. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. No.
You've never seen Nacho Libre. I hope you're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. I've heard of the movie. I've never seen it. Well, wasn't there a movie a few podcasts ago where I was like, "Oh, you've seen?" Oh no, that was um that was Squid Game. So you know what? There's movies that you think I should have seen, and I think you should have seen. That
Well, Squid
yeah.
Games is not a movie, Josh.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
Okay.
Nacho Libre, if I could go off on a little tangent, is an insanely underrated movie. That movie is so good. It's probably my favorite comedy. Now, it is not perfect. There's a couple fart jokes in that film that I wish weren't there. Take out those like three fart jokes, it's the perfect movie. The soundtrack is so good. The acting is hilarious but good and perfect for the film. The comedy is like out of this world funny, but I digress because we're not talking about Nacho Libre right now. But anyway, there is a scene in that movie where Nacho Libre, played by Jack Black, flies through the air and somewhat magically, and it reminds me of that scene.
Because they're wrestling.
They're wrestling, and a body is thrown out of a ring somewhat in a magical fashion. That's it.
Okay. Now, not that we're going to talk about the ending, but since you brought up the magical throw,
Yes.
I thought when he had him up in the air, I thought, and so he had him up in the air, and then
Mm-hmm.
Duncan with his pipe, with his
Yes.
tire iron, was coming for Shia's head, and so I
Yes.
thought he was going to throw him at
Yep. I
Duncan
thought that too. I thought that
and
too, and
save
save
the
him.
day. Yeah, but it
Yes.
did not happen.
It did not
So,
happen, but that is exactly what I was thinking as well.
so then good. It was out of left field, if you will, that he
Yes, it
didn't do it.
was. Yep, that's true. I do have when we go to our scoring and we talk about the ending, I will talk about my feelings about like the ending, you know, if you know what I'm saying. But I will stay away from that for now.
Well, we keep talking about it. Do you just want to get to
No.
it and then? Okay.
No, no, no. We'll get there when we get there because I have other things I want to talk about.
Okay. Well, all my things are pretty much tied up in the scoring. So
Okay.
you want to say you have some notes?
Yes, I
Maybe I
want
can
a
play
couple
off.
things that I want to say.
Okay.
This film had one of my favorite relationships I've ever seen in a movie, and that's between Tyler and Zach. And I just felt the characters, Tyler and Zach. It just felt so genuine, and that these guys must have been like become really close, like in real life, and it just really translated well to the screen, and it was quite believable their friendship. Like I truly believe these guys are actually friends in real life, and also, I mean, that part is was obviously great, and I did start to question a little, and I wanted to pose this question to you: if you thought that their relationship, their closeness, developed a little too quickly. Like I know it was only an hour and a half long movie, so maybe that had to happen, but I just felt like they became very close very quickly. But I guess they had sort of similar circumstances, so that maybe quickened the process. What do you think?
I think that's a great question. I think that the movie did a great job in explaining that because
Mm-hmm.
there were flashbacks between uh, of Tyler and I think his brother,
Yeah, that's his brother.
played by John Bernthal,
Yeah,
who we all know from things. So I think the relationship between Tyler and Zach was quick because Tyler had that emotional connection
that
to
is
his
true.
brother, and he, because it was kind of implied that he was the reason why the brother's no longer around.
Yes. Yeah, you're
Um,
right. He probably found maybe that sort of brotherly connection with Zach.
yeah, he saw somebody that not he didn't necessarily need to protect, but somebody that he could hang out with and I guess protect. The scene where Zach was up on the top of that by the water, where he was
Oh yeah,
being
getting
bullied
like.
by those children.
Hmm.
Him, like it was great. I really liked how Tyler reacted to that by
Yeah.
running up, and be like, he can't swim because he just learned that about Zach, and that's like
Hmm.
great character development.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a bit too quick. Maybe that would have been better, 15 minutes later in the movie.
Hmm.
But then we saw how, like, it seemed him losing his brother seemed to affect him quite a bit.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And so he was filling that hole with Zach. Um, but I never once thought that it was too quick. I just
Okay.
wanted them to be, like, I wanted them to be close.
Yeah.
And normally in these kind of movies, like two people, they have some sort of conflict between each other where like one hates the other for some reason,
Right.
and they have like a little bit of an argument. They
Yeah.
didn't really have that in this movie, which
Hmm.
I really liked. I just wanted them to be good with each other for the whole time. I didn't want, Tyler to say something
And then they were sort of
insensitive.
mad at each other for a while, and I know what you mean. That is like a movie trope sort of thing.
It was the closest they got to that was when they were outside of Saltwater Rednecks, um,
Hmm.
his home, and they were trying to explain to him that, you know, just a guy named Clint.
Yeah.
It's not real. And then the Saltwater Redneck comes out in the car, and it was like amazing,
Yeah.
goosebumps, if you will.
Yeah. That is my other note I wanted to mention before we got into the scores was that this was like an example of how I imagine in my own mind if I were to meet like one of my idols in person,
Hmm.
where maybe not so much the first part where he just goes, "Oh, I gave that up and I'm not really doing that anymore," and like, but Clint, the saltwater redneck, he like was a pretty good sport. Like he still like waved and all that stuff. But when he put on like the makeup and came out and greeted them when they were walking away and like really gave like 110% for this like immersive experience so that Zach could meet him. Like that was, yeah, very heartwarming. And that's how, if I meet one of my idols, that's how I would want that experience to go as well. Because it feels like if I were to meet someone that I really admire, it would be kind of be like they wouldn't be very interested in it. So it was, yeah, I don't know. It was just a cool way of seeing that, I guess.
I think subtly, the characters in this movie were very fleshed out.
Hmm.
Um, like even in that scene with Clint, we saw him like, oh, I haven't done this for 10 years,
Yeah.
but you can see that he missed it.
Oh yeah, you can see the fire
Like,
in his eyes. Like when they mentioned it, he was like, "Oh, like yeah,
yeah, like
totally."
he looked sad and was thinking when they were leaving his porch, and then he leaves, and then we think, oh, well, I mean, you don't. I didn't think, anyways, that that was the last we're going to see of him because I knew there was wrestling in the movie.
Mm,
But if you didn't have any idea, you're like, oh, that's just the end of Clint. Now, what's going to happen to these three? But then
right.
he comes out, and
Yeah.
it's great,
Hmm.
great movie choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Great movie choice, Josh.
Um, I think there was something I was gonna say too, but now I can't remember. So great, great podcasting.
Yeah, totally. That's okay. We've said a lot. We can get to the scores and maybe you'll remember.
Okay, yeah,
Unless
you
there's
want to give
something,
it a
yeah, unless
score?
there's something else you want to say before we get there.
The we did watch the last movie that I had chosen was Old Boy, and
Hmm.
I told you how Old Boy was the best movie that I had seen in the year 2022, and that has changed now.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Anyways, originality. What do you have for originality for the Peanut Butter Falcon?
I have a pretty high score for this. Now, I didn't do a lot of research in terms of like if this was an adaptation of a story or anything like that. Do you know?
It is 100% a retelling of a very popular story,
Okay.
Huckleberry Finn. I mean, they say it
That
um,
is true.
in the
And they're on rafts and yeah, okay.
it's
That's
like
true.
in the tagline, basically. But
Okay.
I'll let you give your score, and then I'll explain why that has
I see.
affected my score.
I see. I see. Okay. Yeah, now that you mentioned Huckleberry Finn, there are elements in the movie that really do correlate quite well with that, so that does make sense. I did I did love this story. I thought it was quite original. Of course I was naive to the fact that it was a Huckleberry Finn sort of retelling in a way. So my score, despite that, I had it as an 8.5.
That's funny because I had it as an 8.5
Yeah.
when I scored it after I watched it, and then I realized it was the Huckleberry Finn thing. So that my original score is 7
Okay.
because there are quite a few unique details. I did like the story, so a 7. But I mean, originality isn't like it's probably the worst, the
I was
worst thing we have.
I was about to say it's like probably our worst grading rubric
Well,
thing.
we can go over that and make some changes. These were
We
just like
could.
quick things I put together, and you just adapted them. You didn't question me at all. So,
That is true.
okay, well, then the next one is ending. So,
Okay, I will give my thoughts on the ending. Okay, so when Tyler was hit over the head with a tire iron,
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf, yes, I was certain that he had died. And when it cuts to the shot, like they're waiting in the hospital, which
Yes.
is a bit of a movie trope as well, I will
Yes.
say. And you saw her reaction,
Yes.
her being Eleanor. I that sort of even further cemented in my mind that he had died. And I mean, I didn't want him to die, but I thought it was going to be like sort of a harsh ending, like, and they were going to blossom out of that tragedy sort of thing. And then in the very last scene where they're driving to Florida, and you don't see him, and then he turns out he's laying in the back seat. I didn't love that. It felt like a bait and switch a little bit. Like I was. I mean, was I happy that he was alive? Yes, but it felt like it could have been a stronger ending had he not. That's kind of what I feel.
You wanted him to die?
I didn't want him to die. I loved him as a character, but when I thought he had died, I thought, wow, I can't believe that movie went there. But I totally believe that this has happened, and I'm curious how this is now going to end. So maybe I had just sort of made up my mind, like, okay, he's died, and that really sucks. Now let's see what they're going to do with this. And then if they hadn't put that scene in the hospital where she reacts like, okay, here's the terrible news. He has passed away. We're so sorry. Then this wouldn't be how I feel. But I just didn't love that bait and switch ending, is what I feel like they did. As a bait and switch. Now, if I ignore that part and include the wrestling sort of climax of the film, if we're including that in the ending, that part was very good. I liked that whole part. So the way I scored this was combining those two things. And so I gave it a 6 for the ending. Sort of
Okay.
long-winded, but a long-winded 6, but there it is.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent myself.
Okay, good.
So the ending, the I was looking at the IMDb page, and there was a note saying that there were some executives, some film executives that were pushing very hard for the directors. There was two directors
Hmm.
to take him out of the car and imply that he had died. And they were like, "That's not happening. He's staying alive." But they left the hospital scene in where she was clearly told some news that she was very upset about.
Right.
Like, what was she? And then Zach was blowing out candles on his cupcake,
Hmm.
all very sad. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen The Sixth Sense?
Yes.
The the boy who sees dead people in the
Spoilers.
movie.
Actually, I
Bruce,
guess that's not really the spoiler. But
Bruce
anyway.
Willis is dead the whole time.
Oh God.
The Haley Joel Osment,
Hmm.
that boy, he was in another movie with Helen Hunt called Pay It Forward,
Okay.
I believe it was called.
Hmm.
Is that a movie that you've
No.
seen? Okay. Well, the ending to Pay It Forward, I think it's called Pay It Forward, something like that.
Okay.
I should look it up, but that's not what we do here.
No.
It it was a movie that I saw as a younger boy, and the ending of that movie, what I can remember from it is basically like kindness. You pay it forward. So, and he's just like a boy in school who's learning about paying it forward.
Hmm.
He gets stabbed at the end of the movie by the bully, and he
Okay.
dies.
Right.
He gets stabbed and he dies, and that was the end of the movie. So I feel like for some reason that brought up this. If he would have died in Peanut Butter Falcon, that might have
Yeah.
ruined it for me. That might have
Mm.
been like, okay, well, what was the point of that? Like, why did he die?
Right.
But I'm glad he didn't.
Hmm.
Anyways, my ending score is 8.5.
Okay.
So perhaps some people will frown on that unrealistic aspect of Zach throwing an old man out of the ring, but they set it up earlier, which I really appreciated, with Clint, the saltwater redneck, telling them all, well, telling Zach pretty much that the move was impossible. It's just something
Right.
they used. Um, they just cut it to make it look like it.
Looked like it was happening. Yeah.
This is a movie where the weirdness I can embrace,
Yeah.
and I think it all wraps up nicely with them in the car, even though it's strange that the whole thing we just talked about.
Right.
And then I said it before, but the fact that Eleanor left with the two of them, the fact Eleanor even liked Tyler at all was kind of weird. But 8.5, just because it wrapped up so nicely,
Hmm.
I think
Yeah. That's fair.
a little different than yours, but
Yeah.
expectation. Now, I give that an 8.5 as well
Okay.
because my expectations were very high for this movie.
Yeah.
I talked to Greg, your pal Greg,
Yeah.
and he hyped up the movie so much.
Right.
Um, and then of course, I looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score of 95 before the movie by accident.
Yep.
And so my expectations were like, oh, this is going to be an amazing movie.
Yeah.
And it was very good. Met and maybe even exceeded my expectations for it.
Right.
I laughed.
Totally.
I felt emotions.
Hmm.
It was a wonderful watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of one of those few times I think where a movie, like when I was listening to that episode of Hot Ones, what I was saying, sort of Sean Evans, the host, was sort of waxing poetic, I suppose, about the film, saying he really liked it. Of course, he's not going to say he hated it, but they showed a few clips from the movie, and it looked pretty interesting. And I also heard from Greg about this movie before I watched it, and he said he really liked it. But it's one of those few times where I had pretty high expectations given those things, and yeah, it met them. I wasn't like disappointed in any way. It was a, quite a good movie, and so my score is very close to that. It was an 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Now, the big one, acting.
Yes.
I'll let you go first.
Okay. I will say that what you mentioned it briefly, the relationship between Tyler and Eleanor, that one, I just don't think they had enough time to make that more solid, you know? Like I wasn't given enough between those two to convince me that Eleanor would drop everything and go to Florida with them. Just wasn't. But I mean, they had to focus a bit more on Tyler and Zach, who was the main relationship in this film. So I think in this case, they probably could have done with maybe 5 or 10 more minutes. I would have liked to have seen that relationship fleshed out a little more because it was very surface level for me. So I didn't love that. But the real standouts are Shia's and Zach's performances. They were insanely good. I think Zach has a very good. His name is Zach in the movie, and that's his real name. Zach has a very good knack for comedic timing. I found like delivering his lines, like thing about them. He just hit the comedy like so perfectly. And Shia, his performance, he didn't have a ton of performance that wasn't with Zach. Like we got to see a bit more of Zach on his own than we did with Shia. Really, Shia was just kind of like being a jerk at the beginning, or not being a jerk, but being a rebel, I guess, or whatever, however you want to put that. But yeah, when they came together, it was one of the best, yeah, duos I've seen on film, and so it really sort of overshadowed what I didn't like about Tyler and Eleanor. And so my acting score is actually might be a little higher than you think it's going to be. I have it at a 7.5.
Well, that makes me feel weird about my score. I remembered what I was gonna say
Okay.
earlier,
Yeah.
and that was while watching, I'm curious about how much of the the relationship between Tyler and Zach.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was scripted and how much of that was just them like hanging out
Just their
as
natural interactions that just caught on film, sort of.
yeah, like when they're like
Mm-hmm.
slapping each other in the face. Like,
Mm-hmm.
was that just Shy and Zach doing that and they just used it? Like
Right.
when they were putting watermelons on their head, was that just Shy and Zach and they used it, or was that
Right.
like scripted? There was some lines that Zach did that wasn't scripted that they put in, like when when Tyler was like, "What's rule number one?" and Zach said, "Party."
Right.
That was
That was not scripted.
nope.
Okay.
My acting score is a 9.
Okay.
This I tend maybe to score my movies a little bit higher, um, for whatever reason. I like Shia LaBeouf as an actor.
Yeah.
Some maybe there's a little bias there. Um, Zach was a treat to watch.
Definitely.
The two bad guys weren't great, but
Mm-hmm.
they weren't really in it for that long. And
That's true.
the blind man in the swamp was a nice little treat.
Yeah, he was good too.
Dakota Johnson, you know, she was there.
Yes.
A 9. Yeah, I don't know why. 9 just seems like a good score.
No, no, that's fair. Totally. I'd put a little weight on Eleanor's performance and the performance of the two bad guys, Rat Boy and what's his face?
Duncan.
Duncan. That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you had to score this movie, if Roger Ebert called you and was like, "Hey, I've changed my scoring system. It's now no longer out of 4 stars. It's it's out of 10."
Oh, out of 10, you
Um,
say?
what would you
And you've
score this?
called me to give you my score. Well, I have to
I've been
tell
dead
you.
for 20 years, but yeah.
Oh, you've come back to life and you want to know the score. I would give this an overall score of 8. It was very good. Like lots of it I really enjoyed. There was a few things that wasn't my favorite, and especially the ending sort of definitely brought down the score a decent amount. So that's why I'm at an 8.
What will get you to a 9? What movie? Have you seen a movie ever that you're like 10 out of 10?
Yes, 10 out of 10. Yes, I have a few that I would say are a 10 out of 10.
Name one.
Silence of the Lambs.
Of course. Okay. Um, my score is 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Sorry,
I was about to say, out of curiosity, do you know what I gave Old Boy? I feel like I gave it an 8.5.
I don't have that information.
Again, I need to go and see what we scored all of our films. I feel like I liked Old Boy better than this, but they're entirely different films. It's a little hard to say. But they were both excellent. Let's put it that way. I mean, it is hard to give a movie when you're getting to 9 and 10s. Like it better be pretty airtight, pretty good all around.
I just go by feel. If a movie
Hmm.
makes me feel good, I'm gonna give it a higher score.
That's fair. Yeah. No, 8.5. That's a good. That's not too far off what I gave it. So
Okay, so I gave it an 8.5. You give it an 8.
yeah,
Perhaps the highest scores
they're up there.
we've given. I can't even remember what I gave Old Boy now. Doesn't matter.
Shrek
Okay.
2.
So that was the Peanut Butter Falcon. Any final thoughts on that?
Not on the film itself. No. I will say I thank you for choosing that because I had been meaning to watch that. Now I will say currently I am entertaining three films for my next choice. And what we'll do is I will base that choice entirely off a poll that we will put on Instagram. And so,
Okay.
go ahead.
Are they like similar themed movies? Or are they three different
They
movies
are
entirely?
three entirely different movies. I could not think of a single thing that connects those three movies.
Willem Dafoe.
I don't think there's Willem Dafoe in any of these.
Okay,
But
so you're going to have to tell us the three movies
yes,
now.
I'm going to tell you the three films. The first one is Howl's Moving Castle. Okay, well, let me quickly say that this also depends on if you have seen any of these. But first, I'll go with Howl's Moving Castle. Have you seen that?
I haven't even heard of it.
Okay, it's a Miyazaki film. Surely you've heard of Totoro.
Yes.
Okay, it's the same guy who made that. The second film is The Butterfly Effect. Have you seen that film?
I have seen the Ashton Kutcher
Mm-hmm.
film The Butterfly Effect, but not since probably middle school.
Okay, so that would be a good candidate. I swear that's the movie I've seen the most. I saw the most like commercials for it on TV, but not having seen it. Like I swear they played the trailer for that film, or not the trailer, but like the preview or whatever you want to call that, the commercial for it, like hundreds of times, but I never saw it. And the third one, which ties into Nacho Libre slightly, in that Jack Black is in it. Orange County. Have you seen that film?
I have seen Orange County, but again, not since, like, not for a long time. Orange County would be a movie that, you find on TBS a lot.
Right. Well, I have not seen that movie. I just know that Jack Black is in it, and that is literally the only thing I know about it. And that there's oranges on the front. Like they got oranges in their mouths or something.
Those are three wild movies that you've chosen.
Yes, they are entirely different. And the movie that we are going to watch this episode is entirely dependent upon a poll we will put on Instagram once this podcast episode is released. Now, how long do those polls last on Instagram?
24 hours.
24 hours. Okay. So maybe we'll like a day after this airs, we'll put the poll up. We, I mean you. Now, I have to say, given a film that right at the beginning, had I heard this correctly, and I think that I have, you said we won't have very much to talk about for this movie. I feel like we've been going on for a lifetime. Like this has been like almost an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great.
It is good. I I feel great about this episode. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel fantastic.
The thing I like the most about this is that I come into to an episode at the beginning and I'm like, well, I don't know if we're gonna be able to. I don't know if there's a lot of notes that I have, but then you start talking and then that lets me say some things that I remember. So
Well, I mean that's just podcasting 101 right there. We're
yep,
just nailing it.
101, we play off each other.
It's
So
totally. I love it.
Totoro.
Totoro.
Um, so you're okay. So the first movie. Can you repeat it? What it was called?
Howl's Moving Castle.
So that's an anime.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Some
And
people
then
call it their favorite Miyazaki film. I've only seen My Neighbor Totoro, so I can't really say all that much. Have I seen Spirited Away? Have I seen that? Maybe. I can't remember. But anyway, continue.
that one is interesting because we have a standing movie date once every month with my girlfriend's ex-roommates at their house.
Oh, oh,
They're really into the Spirited Away, you know, the franchise, like
right.
the Totoro and the the Howl's, Haunted Mansion or whatever you said. And so that one might be interesting because we've done nothing but be ignorant to the anime
Right.
community. So that's good.
Hmm.
And the second movie, The Butterfly Effect.
Yes.
Um, where are you coming up with these movies? Like,
I don't know. I just like I've. It's one of those movies that's just been always on the back of my mind. I just always like it. Just always pops in my head. It's like I need to see that movie.
are you aware there's a sequel?
I did not know. Butterfly Effect 2,
Yeah,
Iron Wings of Death.
I believe Ashton Kutcher has nothing to do with it. I think it might even just be like a TV movie. Butterfly Effect
Okay,
2. That would have been a good one. But and then Orange County, that's Jack Black and I believe Tom Hanks' son, Colin Hanks. Am I correct?
could be. I have
You
no idea.
you just okay. Do you know what Colin Hanks looks like? You see
I'm
the
assuming somewhat like Tom Hanks.
you see the two men on the cover with oranges in their mouth. Just one of them looks like Tom Hanks.
No, no, he looks like not Tom
Is
Hanks.
it not? Is it not Colin Hanks? Orange County. Now I have to look it up.
Well, we got nothing but time.
Yeah, the end of our podcast usually go on for quite a long time.
They do. They sort of go on and on.
The
Colin Hanks. You're right.
2002 film. Yeah, Colin Hanks is actually the the first name that comes up. Colin Hanks, Jack Black. Yeah, if you're a big Schitt's Creek fan, Catherine O'Hara is in it. If you're a big Throw Up from the Sun fan, John Lithgow is in it. If you're a big Grace and Frankie fan, Lily Tomlin's in it.
Well, this is exciting. There's people in it I didn't even know were in it.
Butterfly Effect. I'm just wondering now.
Yes.
The Butterfly Effect's actually a 2004 movie versus a 2002 Orange County. I'm wondering now, our audience, our Instagram audience,
Yeah.
how they would vote because they so far in the two we've done have gone the opposite direction of where we ended up going.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea of what you want, just assume it's going the opposite way. Do we have a lot of anime fans? Do we have a lot of Ashton Kutcher fans? Do we have a lot of Nacho Libre fans?
Well, I mean, this wasn't intentional, but Howl's Moving Castles also came out in 2004. So these all came out very similar times.
Early 2000.
Yeah, I will say that from what I've seen based off the analytics of our Instagram page, that our main age is like 30 to 35, I think. So I don't know if that lends itself to somebody picking a movie from the early 2000s, but given this scenario, they don't have a choice. They got to pick a movie from the early 2000s.
Studio Ghibli. That's right. One of the three movies has a higher Rotten Tomato score than the other two combined. So that's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, well, whichever of the three movies gets chosen, I can promise you that the movie that I choose for episode 14 will be much different than those three. So we're keeping it fresh here on the pod.
Fresh, exciting.
Okay, well, that's fun. This is
Yes,
going to be quite a long one. It
it
would appear.
is.
On that
Shrek
note,
2.
yeah. On that note,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's not staying in, so that's going to be confusing.
Uh,
On that note, well, it's been a fun time. But I should probably stop talking and leave.
okay. Stop talking and leave.
So thank you for listening, Jesse and the audience. And yeah,
Okay. Bye bye.
okay, great. Thank you so much.